Yep.
And where I can't be.
6 feet.
Yep.
So it's flashing, it's on, we are ready to go. We will call the meeting to order, the 2020 meeting of the Predator Damage Control Board, Advisory Board, and introductions. Let's see. Everybody get a agenda? No. Here are our agendas.
You need it, hard copy?
I'll give you a paper copy.
Yeah, I got one.
We got one?
You got one?
We're gonna,
Okay. Introductions. I'm Jim Carr, the Chair of Predator Damage Control, representing Timberlands. My far left is Tristan Huff. You got to be on a microphone and close to it. So Tristan Huff as forest landowner, small woodland owner. Charlie Waterman is our secretary of the board and representing livestock, and Mitch Vincent representing livestock. And Tristan is also vice chair of the group. So with that, we will start with the minutes of the 2019, May 9th, 2019. Has everybody had a chance to read those, look at those? And if you need a copy, here they are. And those guys have copies.
Yep, we got it.
So we will need to approve the minutes as presented.
I so moved.
Moved by Charlie Waterman.
Second.
Second, Tristan Huff. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. Minutes approved. Next on the agenda is our advisory board member terms. Tristan Huff, expiration date is June 30th of 2022. Ron Mason, who is not here, is June 30, 2022. Mitch Vincent's is June 30, 2020. And my term is up June 30, 2020. And Charlie Waterman's is June 30 of 2021. And those are the current advisory board members and current dates for 3-year terms. And with that, we will, hey, welcome, Dan.
Hey.
Oh, and also, if anybody is online that wants to call in to our meeting, the number is 541-396-7778, and we will get you online.
How is everybody?
Good.
we're doing good.
Did Stu come online?
I don't-
Stu left?
left him a message with the number.
Okay, good.
He's going to beat, he'll
On
go
his
beat
cell
if somebody
phone,
gets on
so.
Yeah, this will be if somebody comes on.
there.
Okay, and according to our bylaws, members of the board are appointed by the current advisory board, and for the next 3-year term, Mitch Vincent has agreed to another 3-year term, and I have also agreed to another 3-year term. So that's on the table for discussion or changes or other nominations.
I'd move we appoint Mitch Vincent and Jim Carr through to 23.
Okay, motion made by Tristan Huff to appoint Mitch Vincent and Jim Carr for 3-year terms.
Did you, just a second, did you want to go on the county system?
He can call in and
Nope.
listen.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, you're just about in. Okay, we'll see you in a minute. Bye-bye.
Is that
Sorry
Stu?
about that. That's Stu.
Okay, great. Good.
Okay, so we got, I apologize. So we got
Tristan
moved.
moved.
So now we need a second, right?
We need a second.
Yeah.
I second.
And Charlie seconds the motion. Any discussion?
I would second it, but I don't think I can.
No, not.
All right, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? You can't vote on that, Mitch, on that side. So that passes unanimously, so we are down to the additions of landowner petitions for inclusion in the next fiscal year. I had that, there's 3, I had them written out, and I left them laying on my desk. But I know that one of them is Tigert on Bear Creek with 32 acres or so. There was a 6-acre tract on Morgan Creek below the hatchery that somebody wants to join. And then I had a petition from the McLeod group off of the north end of Langlos Mountain, North Fork Flores Creek, to add an additional, and I believe it's 1,749 acres on theirs. So it's going to total out to, and I have that number, but it'll be, I think, a 32 and then a 6. So it'll total up to another 2,005 acres or so. Or, I mean, 1,800 and, yeah, it'd be 1,805 acres that'll be added to the rolls for the next fiscal year.
Would you send those names to me?
I
so
will.
can get them in the minutes
I'll
and
send them
then
to you and
send
get them in, I'll email them to you tonight, I
Oh,
think.
that's
I'll stop back
perfect.
by the
Thank you.
office and do it, so, and we'll get those to you. It was interesting, I don't know if you've ever run across this, if you ever do, and I don't know exactly, but there was one tract that McLeod's turned in for like, I don't know what it was like 23 or 27 acres. And it wasn't a McLeod name, but their post office box. And on the tax rolls, it has this person's name, and it has at the end of the number, it has a U1. And there's also lists a U2 on that tax roll. And and it's an undivided interest in a piece of property. And talking to Tim, he said that they had been paying, the family had been paying the taxes on it for 40 years. And they, at one point, looked for the individual to try to find him to see if they could get that title cleared up, and never did, but they just keep paying the taxes on the property. And it's kind of enclosed in their properties. I'd never run across that before. I've seen them where there were 50% interest, but I'd never seen it with an undivided interest in.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is that their total acreage, or is that just timber acreage?
Their total is about 1750 is what is going to be on the McLeod bunch.
But like they didn't choose to hold some acreage back because it was pasture land or something like that?
No, when they turn it in, it's all the tax lot, and it gets divided out either forest, agricultural, mixed. When it gets turned, it doesn't matter because it's one rate per acre, no matter whether it's ag or forest, either way on it. So that's how this system is set up for this.
But we divided it up because Douglas County separates theirs, and we may someday, who knows? But
I
we'll
was under
have,
the impression that Eisenhardt's don't include all their acreage either for Jim. It's only this much, because that's where the breed rod is, and, you know, so I
Well-
want to make sure McLeod's ain't like that, because I.
No, theirs is total acres. I looked at what they gave me for tax lots and acreage, and it's the whole tax lot, so it's all their property.
Okay, good.
Yeah. And really, when you look at theirs, it's mostly timber mixed with grass scattered through it and old roads is what it is. So, yeah. So anyway, that's the number that we'll be looking at for next year. It'll be an additional 1,800 and something on top of the what we had for this last year was
200,000.
200,000 acres, so it'll be another 1,800, so it'll be up over, 2,003 acres, somewhere in there that will have it. And I'll get you those total acres, and do that, so. And it totaled out that, and I don't remember the number off the top of my head, but at the current rate, it would be somewhere just over $85,000 for next year's assessments coming in. So, with that, and I had calls from one other person, I believe, and they were on Hall Creek, but
Carpenter, Rick Carpenter?
no.
And Dale Blanton joined, is that in your?
He never sent me anything.
Oh, okay.
Nobody ever sent me anything on Blanton. Never saw it. Never called me or anything.
Okay, that's fine with me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, I'd like to have him on, but.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there are several people that we've had multiple conversations with and over several years, and they just never have joined.
Okay.
The one on Hall Creek, I can't remember the name, about a mile up. That's where they, I think it might have been, maybe it was one of the Schraders or right close to them. But they didn't have a lot of land, but they had some activity. I don't know, it's been like almost a year since they talked to you or something.
I think there was a line issue out there, if I remember.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Probably a
Probably a Lone Rock lion, huh?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. All right. So, with that, we will go to Wildlife Services report.
Can we go back?
Yes.
Did I miss out that we didn't,
What's that?
we
Approved.
didn't have our officers election?
Yeah, we had them.
Oh, we did that.
Yeah.
Oh, I must.
Oh,
have-
excuse
You were
me,
on the
excuse me, I
school-
missed,
No,
advisory board officers, we didn't do
Yeah.
that, that's correct, we did
Okay.
appointment of that,
Officers.
so,
Okay.
yeah. I'm current chair, Tristan is vice chair, Charlie's secretary with his secretary here. And, so,
I think the thing has secretary treasurer.
secretary treasurer,
on
yeah,
How we were set up.
yeah, even though we don't have money.
Yeah, it's all
we don't
county
handle-
and they
We
have
don't
the
handle money, so, yeah. Mitch, you gonna volunteer to be chair?
I should volunteer to be
No.
vice chair.
Whatever, doesn't matter. Charlie, you continue on
Okay,
position, and either you wanna continue
For what I've been putting in.
for what you've been putting in for
Yeah.
time?
Yeah.
Okay,
You're
all right.
getting the-
and I don't mind continuing, chair, since I've got this all set up and it's kinda easy for me to get through it, so, and,
Thank you.
few phone calls and some, little paperwork, and it's not too bad, since I'm usually stuck in the office anyway, so.
I appreciate all you guys taking the extra time.
Is that, if that is agreeable, we'll say that's a unanimous decision,
motion,
and,
need a motion.
okay, I'll make the motion to.
Charlie makes the motion.
reinstate the current officers.
all right.
Second?
Tristan seconds, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passes. Okay,
And do we need to sign on or vote to put these people in?
no, we don't vote to put them in, we just put them in,
Because they've
but,
signed up.
because they've signed,
Okay.
but we will have to sign, our resolution that's down the page here.
Which
and
will
we'll-
have the numbers.
And it'll have the numbers and stuff, I'll get the numbers in that, so.
And the names. and
Okay.
everything.
And the names go in separate
Right.
to Denise and do that. so.
LB.
Commission-
50.
Does the commissioner, does the commission have to sign off on new additions?
This gets, we present this to the commissioners,
Uh-huh,
they stamp it
yeah.
to the assessor's office and budgets and
Yep.
however else it goes. And I've got
He's got
I
LB
don't,
50 form.
I've got that to fill out, but it doesn't require
Names everybody
signature.
and they
It just
agree.
requires my signature. And that just has what our budget number is for 21 on it, so. And I've got that form printed off and ready to go. I had enough paperwork with me to not keep up with that, so. So, with that, let's go to Wildlife Services report.
Okay, so I apologize for a little bit because I had computer problems last week, and then my computer failed. I got a replacement today, and I was working on it, and then that one failed. So, thanks to Jim, was able to print out a few things, but I was very limited on what I could provide.
Okay, this is the budget stuff,
Yep.
so we'll hold it until you're
Okay,
done
so
with your report.
what I have right now is last year's report. As you know, we've been really hammering down on field reports. I'll pass, let's go ahead and pass that on. Hey. In these breakdowns there's a lot of information in these things. I can, continue to provide these types of reports to the group. I can continue to provide these types of reports, to the group, unless you want a different format. I have another thing that I've been doing for Jackson County, as well as I just started for Douglas County. I'll have you take a look at that, and you guys can decide if you would like something in this other format. There's a lot more narrative to that. I try to leave out some of the other pertinent stuff that's in the field reports. So, if, on these field reports, what we are capturing is obviously all the animals that we are dealing with within the county. This incorporates some of the Plover project in there as well. If you see padded traps and things like that that are listed, and the animals that were dispatched for damage-related issues, whether it be an endangered species. That's listed in here. And then it also identifies when we have non-target species as well, and that they've been maybe released, or if they had to be euthanized as well. In addition to that, going down on this list is a damage summary. So when Dan goes to a property.
Take that microphone closer. There you go.
Okay. So when Dan goes to a property, he's collecting data on the resources that were protected. Unfortunately, I was not able to get that report. I can provide that at a later date here to the group. We're essentially there trying to protect all the resources that are on that property from whatever damage is occurring from whatever species. In addition to that, when he's responding to these things, he's documenting the type of damage that has occurred and what species it occurred from. We're trying to get some numbers so we have a better representation of, what the resources are, like I said, that we're protecting on that land, but also trying to capture, what was the impacts to that individual that may have had some loss. So it's broken down in a couple different categories: reported, and then also verified. Verified is when he physically looks at a piece of property and sees that the animal's down, and then works around that animal that has been predated on. So those numbers are captured, and it tells you in this situation whether in reported loss category or the verified category of, in this case, you can see standing trees, and then damaged species was to beavers. And then, so that information is being captured. This is, did I say this is last year's? No, this is last year's. So I'm going to turn to, so this one can be passed out.
Okay.
And then,
Whoever wants that.
yeah. And then this is for,
I think I only had 3
yeah,
copies
that's
of
okay.
that, so,
That's right.
yeah.
So we can always get more. So the next one I have is actually, so beginning of the state fiscal year of July 1 through where we're at currently. It says 6/3, or 6/30, but actually it's whatever's been entered into the computer at this point. So right now we can see, if you scroll down, and this one I had time to be, this one actually printed for me today before my computer crashed. But we've got over 1,657 hours in the field from Dan and some of our other field staff that's been able to assist him with various human health and safety issues, bear and cougar, I believe that's some bear and cougar issues that had occurred. And so that is highlighted there. Jim Doherty will also come up periodically. We can see that he worked 38 hours up to date. And so that Harry McNall, he is a seasonal employee that is working on the Western Snowy Plover project. he had some free time this summer, and Dan was able to kind of work with him on a couple bear situations, I believe, right?
Yeah,
So-
right at the end of the fall bear work, we
So-
helped out quite a bit.
So, and now he's full-time that. So, anyway, we've got that many field hours reported. The other thing we want to really draw your attention to, this fluctuates from year to year, but outreach, Dan goes out and communicates with landowners on, the work that we're doing, and it doesn't always result in the removal of an animal. Sometimes it's education to the public. And in this category here, there are 72 hours that has been documented, whether it was from Dan or even some of our plover guys communicate directly with some of the folks within Coos County. So it's definitely worth being aware that we are trying to promote an integrated approach. Not everything has to be trapped and killed, but when it's possible, we're trying to put some ownership on the individuals to deal with those issues.
Is that the technical assistance?
That's the technical assistance that you do. Yep. So that's the important part. You can see, we had one lion, human health and safety issue that Dan was responding to, this past year. I think that was just the only one. Last year, I think it was a little bit more busy with human health and safety stuff. Damage to property damage and livestock losses, what we estimate from what Dan has collected is over $517,479 worth of damages, and that's a very conservative number that has been lost, so. How many hours? 16, that's that one, right?
I would like to break down, help me out.
So, right here, on this page right here. So I totaled them, I had the chance to total those out real quick. So, right there. See it right there?
Okay,
So that's how many field hours.
yeah.
Technically, for a one-time, full-time person. So again, this is incomplete because it's,
Yeah, but
we
what
still have,
broke out between, like, the forest, livestock versus call-ins that are homeowners and all of this group.
that's gonna take a little bit, that could be done, but that takes a lot of work to be able to,
You can't get
yeah.
it from the, what.
We can't, yeah, unfortunately can't get it from this. But
Because there's a lot
that's,
of time, we're paying our share.
right, I understand it.
And if the other public wants their people and their to be taken care of, they need to pay their share too. Doesn't seem fair that one entity is paying for the other.
So there should not be a lot of that really occurring. I mean,
Yeah, I don't
we
know.
can't tell, so, yeah, so when those cases come up, right, there's human health and safety or,
Skunk, there's chickens,
but,
there's.
so,
I
but
mean,
the skunks issues, Dan's not really responding to a lot of skunk stuff. That's nuisance stuff. If it's nuisance, we're not dealing with it. There has to be damage. So if somebody calls in and says, I just got a skunk underneath my porch, if that thing is not causing damage, we are not in a position to be able to respond to that. That's the private sector to be able to respond to that. If that animal, if that person should decide that there is damage occurring, and then we give them the ability to use a private person, they are willing to do that, but if they
but
choose
that
not
takes
to do
time.
that.
That's all time
Exactly, but
consuming.
he's not responding to those.
Yeah, but it's
There may
still
be
time and the
education.
phone- Yeah, and the education
Y-
and
but
all this.
And so that would be falling in, if he went and talked to somebody for about a skunk, it would be those hours, but it would be very minute, I assure you of that. Remember, we have still state and federal funds that are helping match.
Right.
Those funds are helping
Yeah,
deal
there's
with
not much.
damage issues,
Yeah, there's
but
not
that
much.
also doesn't allow me, I cannot not respond if somebody had, some damage occurring and it was somebody that's not part of the predator district. There's not gonna be a lot, it's what we call them as the one and done type things where, Dan, chime in here if you feel like, but, so it's one person that will say, hey, I've got a cougar that, and ODF&W calls it into us, and then Dan responds. I cannot not provide service to that person because they're giving us money. We can argue maybe it's not enough, right? Because you're gonna say, but that's what we have to work with. So,
But he, the point here is that if the organization is not hearing this, you know, they're not hearing the need. or
Right.
whatever. We have the groundwork here where we could possibly give them,
Mhm.
say, here's the damages. And they say, oh geez, we didn't want to lose that many, or we were having that many issues or whatnot.
Right.
I don't see where the
So-
communication from the down floor trappers getting to the, actually your superiors that understand the
Right.
need of it. That's
Right.
where I'm coming from. And
Right.
that needs to be
So
moved forward.
we were fortunate for a short time that at the end of the budget cycle, there was some state ODFNW and ODA funds that came as a Christmas package. We were working on that to be able to, and one of the things that was provided to us was, we're gonna give you this extra SB 50/50 funds to be able to support other things that are going on, with the condition that we would be able to say, these are the good things we did within a county, and then we would report back as, this is above and beyond, and this is how it was supported. And so we had to do, just like this kind of stuff, be able to track that specifically to those funds, with the intent that we could show we're doing good things with the money, and that's why it would be money well spent within the county or our program, right?
You're saying that you spent more money than was set up last
We,
year.
we were trying to use that funds to be able to tell a story of the good work that Dan does in the
I
county.
tracked the amount of
So,
money coming
that-
into the county or whatever, and there wasn't a Christmas bonus.
They
It's
took it back.
actually
They
what
just,
we set
actually,
up.
so we,
Just- Unless you just did it the last,
so, no, that was done intentionally. So you have the shares that were given. This was above and beyond the shares. So we were trying to, as you're getting at, we're trying to tell folks above that, hey, we could use this money more locally to help.
but not
And-
necessarily in Coos County or
It was, no, it's in all just the participating counties, and even in counties that did not have, it was in a general, we were trying to. So what ended up happening is that we were tracking other projects and tagging, because we have to tag ODFNW Fur Bearer. It's a project code that when we have to give them a report at the end of just like with you guys, accountability. What are you doing with our ODFNW Fur Bearers? And then we provide it to them. We doing the same thing, so it basically carry two tags, one for ODFW, one for the 50/50, right? Unfortunately, we were starting to use those funds and show what we were doing with those funds. ODFW, not Stu, but they pulled that back. And so if we would have showed that in as a share, now we'd have been going, hey, that was, so we were trying to tell a good story of the reasons why that funding is good support for counties to continue to tell the story that you guys are preaching for. So
Is that
it's,
so when I tag that on the ODFW Fur Bearer money, that's the share money that did go away with the 50?
Nope. No, when you take the 50/50, that was the addition. So
Okay.
We're-
So what Charlie's getting at, did we max that fund out?
yes, all of what's happening now is, if we look at the budget requests or the budget that's coming out, we have spent all of those shares to help support him as well as the county, because we are coming to the end of the county. So this, end of this pay period is the last of the county funds that are getting put in towards him. Everything beyond this next pay period is all federal funds to support him in through July, because it takes time for paperwork to get signed and all that. So we're gonna be carrying him on our federal funds that are shares to get him from this next pay period all the way through into July. And then, depending on how long sometimes it takes, we have to continue to carry them. But we gotta make sure that our state funds and our county funds and they get the bill that they can pay, it can't come late. So we're trying to get all those things squared away. So is that clear?
okay.
And so I can get you that other stuff,
Yeah,
but it's
yeah,
just,
but
it just,
What he's been giving here, and just to clarify, this is mostly cooperative money, not ODA and Oregon Fish and Wildlife and Fur Bearers funds. That's an addition. We share salaries and you fund different things.
Right.
And so this here is only for
This is
the co-op,
correct.
which is forestry
And the ag,
yeah.
yeah.
So, just to clarify, this doesn't
Right.
add up to the 113,000 or whatever it was
No, and,
last year.
well, and when you look at the budget, you see that.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
No, all
Right.
I wanted to know is where that money,
Yeah.
how that was spent or whatever, because
Right.
there's no money set up for example, equipment here, you know, so. There's equipment money somewhere coming in, obviously,
There's-
some traps or whatever, but.
Well, there's a replacement for equipment on this
Yeah.
that
On
shows is
that gray-
expended. They're expended at $370 on, $370 on
Right.
replacement equipment.
And there may be some things, and this is why we're saying it's
Middle
like,
of the page there, Charlie. Yeah.
Yep. So-
Supply ammo.
right.
Yeah, it's, if you look at the commitment numbers, it's 2532 in the middle column, 32.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's $370 was
And
expended.
so
That's-
payroll did, our payroll did not post when it was supposed to, it was supposed, well, yeah,
Yeah,
so
it
we were
didn't
supposed to
have-
get an updated report on this, but unfortunately, Monday, Carrie said, I'm sorry, this is the best I can do because our payroll, which was supposed to post, did not post.
Yeah.
Just, it's what happened. So,
Okay.
there may be some things that still are not showing up on there,
Yeah.
but yeah. So that's where we're at
So,
today.
yeah,
Right, right,
that's all I'm saying, yeah,
Right.
you know.
Okay.
Coming from somewhere.
yep,
So, on those expenditures and in these reports are everything that you've been on so far that's been coded into your timesheets.
correct. So
Okay,
when he goes out and does field work,
yeah,
what he's billing for, there's two different systems. There's your web TA, and when he puts it on here, he says, okay, I worked 8 hours on this ranch. Obviously, it's protected here, for privacy,
Right.
but those 8 hours are gonna be billed on our web TA as well. So, that's how
Okay.
that's working. So, lastly, I don't know if that meets your needs, moving forward. I'll continue to provide those if that's what you want. The other thing I'd like to throw out to you guys real quick is that you can share.
what is this one?
That is what I've been doing. Similar report for Jackson County. I've been doing it for quite a while for Jackson County. And Douglas County is just starting to ask for that. And so it kind of details our human health and safety and all that stuff.
That would be,
This specific stuff, it takes obviously more time to do that, I don't mind doing it. But if you guys look at that and decide that you would prefer to have something like that, it does cover the technical assistance, the outreach that we're doing, it's in that. It is here, but it's jumbled and not as clear, so I'm throwing that out as if you guys would like to see something like this in the future, I have no problem doing it. So, but that's you guys' call.
Before we move too far from talking about ODFW and the calls and the skunk stuff that got mentioned, Stu and Dominica have been really good at filtering the calls to include even some of the Bobcat stuff that, you know, technically that's part of our fur bear stuff I could respond to, but they filtered a lot of that. So I think the biggest calls is the backyard bears and then the occasional lion. And that's pretty much what I get the most with, which is in the fall.
Yeah, thanks. We generally will try to take the human safety concerns with bears and cougars.
are you, what do you have as far as coyotes? Do you have any issues, people calling in town about coyotes?
Rarely.
Rarely?
In town.
Okay.
But outside of town, yeah, we get
Yeah.
some.
Yeah,
In town, it's just, a couple a year, maybe,
yeah, okay,
probably, 5 a year or something.
yeah, so it's not a huge item.
No, and
So-
they're generally not,
They usually call you and tell you they saw one, huh?
yeah,
Yeah,
and they wanna know if their cats are safe, that sort of thing.
yeah, okay,
But we'll generally deal with the human health and safety type things with bears and
Right.
cougars. The damage stuff, we generally pass on to Dan, but we both coordinate back and forth on that. Dan's gotten involved with human safety issues, just like we've gotten involved with damage issues on
Okay.
bears and cougars.
All right,
But generally, that's the way we split those. When it comes to skunks and raccoons and that sort of thing, we try to take all that
yeah,
we get. With bobcats, if there is if there's damage to livestock or to poultry or something along those lines, quite often we'll hand those over to Dan if he can do it. Sometimes these guys get saddled with enough to where we have to deal with those too, but,
okay,
that's, yeah.
yeah.
Generally how it
So,
goes.
And those are the ones that we can tap into that fur bearer money we
Mhm.
have bought.
Yeah.
So that's how we've
Okay.
been doing that.
All right.
95% of the work that you're doing is the same. I mean, it's people that are paying for the service.
yeah,
Part of the-
okay,
Did you say 95%?
Yes, at this
Well, I don't think so. Not in the fall. I mean, that's,
Well,
I get
that's when it's the bear.
October, it's November. We had some into December this year, but
what were those, Dan?
those are backyard bears with a live
Backyard bears,
trap.
yeah, okay.
Garbage
And those are the ones that you end up doing live trap?
in the backyard.
Yeah, and they are time consuming because
Yeah.
you might have set the trap for this lady, but then there's 3 other neighbors that weren't coordinating with her, and then you gotta deal with them.
Yeah,
And the bear moved, he went over the hill to a whole nother road system, and that same, you're chasing this bear over here, it's over here. I mean, so
and
that's,
he's moved, yeah,
so
okay,
that's where Stu and I work really, and Dominic, we coordinate a lot on these backyard bears.
yeah, okay,
And I was looking at some of these numbers on some of this stuff, I didn't, the backyard bear, this showed 3 or something. I guarantee you it had
Are
it
you
broke
looking
down
at the wrong
to
one?
culvert trap and a live trap or something, but I think that might not all be exactly accurate.
That was a total?
Well, that's what this says, but there.
Well, are you
more
looking
than
at
that.
which?
Yes.
what page are you on there?
I think it's the first one. I was at a glance when we were first talking about it, but maybe that's just filtered into the 30 or something, but I don't know how many off the top of my head it was last year, do you, Steve? But there was quite a few.
Yeah, 3 a week.
Yeah, so
Yeah, okay,
No joke.
numbers show some things, but they don't show everything.
yeah,
And anyhow, but there is a workload that really does shift during the fall season.
in the fall.
And that's why Jim Doherty and Harry McNall was able to give me a hint.
Mhm.
And I will also say that you guys, there was times when I said, I can't do it, and Dominic was able to do it. So it has been a big group effort.
Yeah, okay, all right,
Before we get
So-
away from that equipment, this is an agreement you signed with the county last year.
Yeah.
The amount of money you signed up for equipment was 0 the year before and 0 last year,
Equipment.
this year. That's the contract, work
Okay.
plan with the county. You have a contract here, a service contract with them, and then you have this work plan. And you've been doing that for quite some time. But,
You- So that, because that's just, it's right here. The equipment is the supplies and materials.
well,
So, yeah, this is the same. It's just how our system is.
well, yeah, but you have the budget. These things all should match up.
I-
Because we approve, we set
Right.
up the money according to this, and it should reflect the county. When the county signs it, it should be the same as, these headings should be the same as this.
Let me see what you're looking at.
Anyway. They're not quite, so they need to be,
So this is a budget, this is different.
this is what you guys put down for the
Right,
state.
I understand.
This is what you sign with the county. The state
Right.
signs with the county on this one.
Okay,
This is the ultimate.
Okay.
In our mind, this is what we represent.
right. And
What-
so that's,
what
so
was
this
the,
is, so this,
what's the number on what the
final
county had?
budget's the
so
same.
your equipment is $3,000. It's right
3,000.
here. And it's right here. It's 29999.
He changed the headings.
No, that's just how the system does it. So we don't, these are a template that we can't modify.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh?
So this is just because it's standard from county to county to county, they're all the same. So, these agreements have always looked the same, probably, unless the, way above our food chain has changed it, so.
Well, we want our
What?
money to go the right places.
Well, yeah, and that, so this
know,
equipment,
They don't have equipment,
Don't-
we
yeah.
got a problem out here.
There- you
We
don't-
can't get the job done.
he's getting equipment, so.
Okay, so
yeah,
according to
disregard
this,
that, it's this,
according to this right here, you had budgeted 3,000.
and it's there. Yeah.
And at least according to this, as far as I'm trying to figure out from this expenditure, you've got $25, 100, you got bait, you've got $800, $900, $925, and $370. You know, so you're at, you know, $1,200 or $1,300 that you've spent out of 3,000.
Right.
That's what I show right now.
Right, well, and that's
Is it-
not complete, there's some other things that were bought, I think, that haven't cleared, but
Yeah.
it's still light.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're still under budget for the 3,000
3,000, yeah.
that is listed as supplies and miscellaneous
Right.
expenses.
Right.
Okay,
Is that category,
that-
the
so-
3,000, it is
but-
strictly to go to equipment?
Yeah, it can be used, so the way that it's written in the contract is that we try to say that's $3,000, but if it needs to go to pay for, because if you're short funded, it can be used to go pay for salary as well. So that's across the board from county to county.
Okay, so it can move around, it's not
Yes.
strictly for material.
Correct.
but it's in there to be able to supply anything that you need to keep going
Right,
for equipment and replacement for,
right.
yeah, okay.
It looks awful light. We wanna make sure we
Need-
have our equipment to do our job, because without equipment.
So what would you like to see?
Thank you, Charlie.
But, I mean,
I-
are you,
M44s.
Oh, but that ain't gonna happen. You gotta talk to the governor about that.
are you,
I appreciate your comments,
Yeah.
and I don't wanna put Paul on the hot seat, we can talk later about it, but, that's good to know, though, so,
Yeah.
It saved a lot of time when they put them in the backcountry, where properly used M44s is.
You're not gonna hear me argue about it,
Yeah.
because there is a lot of applications that those were good, but unfortunately,
I have to,
not in our control.
I have to sign it doesn't matter if it's earplugs, I have to sign. So you can, if you, to satisfy yourself, if you need to see where my signature is on a dollar amount and put it together, I'm inviting you to do that.
okay. So, I understand this discrepancy between what you put down on one and it gets transferred to another, gets called something else, gets lumped in, but it's that number at the bottom that comes out on the end.
Right.
Yeah, okay. I've run into that more than once, trying to track it down and see where it's at on other budgets, so. Okay,
There again, we only have one trapper now.
Mm-hmm.
And if this could be shifted to overtime or whatever, you know,
So-
I would like to have that done or whatever. We got a big job.
So here, I hear you 100%. So what needs to happen in that case? So under all the county agreements, do not spell out and account for overtime. It's not there. So if he was to work overtime within the county, because this county agreement does not allow for that, we would need that to be amended. So moving forward with the next one, if that's what you wish upon, we can actually have that written in that there can be overtime applied for Dan. Because right now, I agree, he's busy as all get up, right? Our agreement does not allow us to charge overtime. That's a problem for him, it's a problem for you, it's when he's trying to deliver
The
service.
agreement says that you may ask for additional funds in the
That-
county agreement.
Yep.
So it has a formal thing or
Mhm.
whatever. Is that how it has to be covered, or?
Yeah, I mean, we'd have to do that, we'd have to get a formal, I mean, I would tell you, at the end of it, we're kind of coming to the end, and now it'd be a little difficult.
Right, but we're
But
saying that for next year.
Move
so-
forward next year, yeah, I have no problem of making sure that that is spelled out in the language.
We
It
would
would be
have to
different
have-
than any other county,
We'd
but
have to have communication from you to us
Yep.
to get the request going, I would.
it would be when we approve a budget, okay, and that paperwork starts going, then I communicate that to our budget people. They put it in the agreement, the format that you don't like, but they put it in there, and then when it comes to their office, they're gonna sign off that we're approving overtime,
Is there,
if it should be.
would you have to set a limit on that, on the amount of overtime?
That's a good question, probably so.
It doesn't, thank you, Charlie. Me and Charlie didn't collaborate on that, but that's great. But I did have the last pay period, there was, it totaled 3 days that I just wrote off. I worked them. I came out on a Sunday on your place. I think actually on a Sunday, that automatically goes to comp. My comp's already maxed out, and I don't have time to take comp. So, I'm not complaining about everything, but this is kind of my question. If there is any money that, we're not hiring a second guy, but if there's money in addition to what covers me, I would just like to be paid for the hours I'm working. I'm writing down on my timesheet what time I come in, what time I break, what time I go home, and that covers me in case I'm in an accident or something with that GSA pickup. My normal working hours, years before you got here, I used to write 7 to 3:30. 40 hours a week, all the time. Then we've learned since Paul's been here, no, you gotta cover yourself, write the hours that you're working.
Yeah.
And, so we do that, but then when it gets all totaled up, it doesn't match the hours where I came in and came out versus the total 80 hours pay period. And with this coronavirus, we were told that we can't go over 80. So I know that's an issue. But, these are things that don't have to be solved right here, but since this conversation came up, that's my take on it. I've got a lot of people to serve, and I enjoy my job, but I also have a wife, and when I come home, she's like, why are you working? She's done this to me. I'm unplugging the phone. You're done. You turned in you work 3 days for free, now you're gonna work for me, So, I got a great wife. But those are the real situations I find myself in.
So you have a good question here. So, why are we restricted? Because one, with the coronavirus, the way that it is, there's people losing their jobs. The agency from up above is telling our staff, try to keep it to 80 hours, because just be respectful for the folks that are not able to work, number one.
You're talking about private versus U.S. government.
Correct.
Oh.
Because there's a lot of eyes looking
I
at
didn't know
you.
the
Still
government
have,
was cutting back.
we are not to work more than 80. There are some changes coming down the pipe. So the reason for that specific reason, to be respectful, we're trying to get our jobs done within our 80-hour period, but the other part of it is to lessen the exposure, potentially. If you have people running around working 100 hours versus their normal 80, there's
Normally,
potentially,
He's out in the middle of nowhere.
I understand that.
The
But our agents, we have a lot of
people
agents.
that made the
do-
rules
I
don't
got that
know
one.
that.
All right, and so we,
One size don't fit all.
Yeah, we understand.
but we have a lot of employees that are work in different capacities. I agree. Dan is, social distancing for him is not a problem, except in this room. But we have other agents that work in airport environments. We have other agents that work in city and urban environments, and so it's just, they
I
lump
gotcha,
it.
but
Yeah.
That's where we're at, but
it doesn't fit
now
all.
that we're starting to go into
Well,
different phases,
We're in phase 2.
right,
starting
and so
Saturday.
that's actually gonna be making a difference.
So, I guess what I'm hearing is that if, and way we funded this with what funds that needed to come from, and when you look at this, there are funds coming from, the county forest that are in addition to what we assess. And so we built in our or rate increase last year to allow for a little bit of overlap in that. So should we look at adding to the new agreement an additional, for this next year, some overtime coverage? I mean, how much would it, how much
No, let
would,
me,
if needed?
I don't
mean,
mind stepping out, cause I want you guys to have a candid conversation.
You don't need to leave.
Um,
Yeah. No, but
I didn't know we were gonna go this route, but.
No, well, and that is fine for it to come up, but I mean, and what I'm saying is if we think that we just need to say, okay, here, we're gonna allow for this much overtime to
Within-
cover.
And I could say maybe the fall bear issue, or, you know what I mean, in these peak periods, and have a window on it.
We're in a
Say-
peak period right now, I
Right.
can tell you that. I got
Coyotes.
home 7:45 last Friday.
Is the issue, there's not a mechanism in the agreement as it stands now to move, shift money from supplies into
You can use it towards,
No.
yes, you can, there's a mechanism to move it, but the
There-
agreement does not spell out overtime.
we don't allow.
It does not allow to pay for overtime, the
So that
agreement.
seems like a no-brainer that we should allow that.
It is, but I guess what we should do is set it up with a dollar limit.
Right.
And just say, okay, here's, allow for this many hours or this much in overtime.
And that might be a discussion we may not, if you guys kind of figure it out, then we have to figure out what his rate is,
Mhm.
right? So,
Paul, how do you handle this with the other districts you work in?
we
They-
just don't allow it.
they don't.
Until it's
They got
different.
more people
Well, depending, I mean, you got 2 people in Douglas County, but,
now, you got
yeah,
3.
yeah.
Yeah.
But now, why Dan, and I wanted Dan to be here, and again, we didn't talk about this, but could you tell us an estimate of time or money or whatever that we need to put into this column? You're the one that would know better than anybody.
For an overtime fund, you
Yeah.
mean?
Cover this.
Well, then it's gotta be loaded with the agency.
Well,
Yeah,
here,
with
Yeah.
all the other.
let's back up. This question kinda needs answered in my mind first. With the funds that we're generating, plus the funds that are coming in from all the other pools, how much in addition to my full-time job is there? Can we pull out of that whatever, we're not gonna hire somebody else, I can see that, that's not gonna happen. And for the most part, I'm doing the job fine, and when it gets busy, that's when we pull in some other people, so.
When and if they're available.
As much as I'd like to see someone else hired, if I just got paid for the hours I was working, and then during the peak critical times, we got someone in to help with the, it almost needs to be for this spring timber season too. I've got more and more timber producers are calling me with fresh bear fuel.
I called you even, you know.
Yeah, we had people on Charlie's even. So the peak is actually now through till these backyard bears go away.
Dan, do you have you ever recorded additional hours that you work above, or just hours that you work, including those that are above and beyond?
I'm getting better, but I'm not as, because it's up until now, I mean, I've never had any overtime, really. I mean, everyone in my program has worked more hours than they're paid. I mean, I'm sure Paul had his, but especially, I mean, so yeah, I get in the habit of going, well, I would need to cover
Between
myself,
comp and
and
credit,
I'll
it's
just
80.
write 4
I think it's
o'clock, 4:30 or
24 and-
whatever. But
Or-
I don't have an exact figure, but.
So well, let me ask this question, before we go
80 total between
try to
credit.
figure out the overtime thing. If you're allowed comp, and so then you can take those days off and be paid for it, correct? Take time off and be paid.
It's like,
Not very long.
yeah, comp is just in
To
the
get-
bank, basically. I mean, I'm
Right,
just-
so how much are
talking
you
about
allowed?
comp and credit?
25 hours of
Yeah,
credit
it's 80
hours.
hours that they can carry.
Is it 25 hours?
I think
It's more complicated than.
there's credit and comp, and he'll answer that.
Oh,
Well, there's a couple things there, we'll get to that, because I think we're talking, are you talking about annual leave too? So annual leave is, 240.
Okay.
But so every pay period, he gets 8 hours of leave,
Yeah, I got it.
right? So so that is accumulating, and then the comp hours are, first it goes credit, so he's maxed out to 24. Once you go over your 80, you accumulate credit, those can stay with you forever. It's intended because we have flex schedules.
So what
Wildlife does
happens
this in, it,
If it stays with you forever, when he retires, he gets that paid out? Or does it just
the
go away
annual gets paid out, yeah,
Eventually.
eventually. So, but those, so what the comp and credit within our agency is designed is to allow maximum flex, because we're on flex. So Wildlife doesn't work a 9 to 5 job, so sometimes he's gonna be working early, working late.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so he gets his normal 80. Once he hits the 80 hours, it goes into credit. Those credit don't expire, so to say, like a comp hour. Comp hours, if he accumulates, once he maxes out his 20, like his, yeah,
doesn't get
his,
any more.
right, he doesn't get any more,
I got
it
that.
goes to comp, okay?
Okay.
At the comp hours, he has 365 days to use the comp that he accumulated.
Good luck on
If he
that.
does not use them, we are forced to pay overtime on that.
Okay.
And we don't, I get the warning bells before this happens, hey, you're getting close on
Yeah, they're-
You know, so that don't happen, I don't know if it's happened, it was very minimal. But you asked a question, does the annual leave stay with you, right?
Yeah.
That's what, and I thought I heard you say yes, but no, I'd lose my annual.
well, so, yeah, there,
If I
so
don't
that's
take
another
no
part of
annual
it.
leave, I lose the comp if I don't
So you
take
have
it,
to-
and.
How many-
240, and then it's,
Okay.
yeah, then he accumulates
But the
beyond
max
that.
we never have is 240.
The maxes you can have is 240.
So he goes over that, it's just too bad, he loses.
Yeah, but, and so that's where they usually, at the end of the year, we're like, hey, you've got
And
this
you're al-
outstanding
he's
balance on
already at
comp.
that?
Yes.
Well,
You're at 240?
I don't, they give me more time off than I take every year. I don't take.
I understand that, but you're already maxed out?
Yeah.
At 240?
Yeah.
Okay, that's what I wanted.
all right, so in the event that we try to come up with a number, I mean, how do we come up with a number that says that we're willing to pay for that overtime, that you can put into the agreement, so that you can pay it?
It might be easier just to have a lump sum and then they drop.
That's what I mean, but how do you calculate it? I mean,
I
is
know,
there,
that's,
is there, right now, you said you've got how many days? 3 days?
Last pay period,
That
there
are-
was 3 days that I just
Last
let
pay
go.
period.
They're overtime, basically is what they are, right?
Well, they're gone, they disappeared. I didn't, but
so
they
he's
would be
max,
24
he
hours.
can't.
It'd be 24 hours of overtime.
And, yeah,
So how
we-
many times are you gonna do that in a year?
This is the time from here till the backyard bears come and go.
Okay.
So,
So
When is-
what's your pay
June.
period? What's your pay period? Monthly?
no, by,
Bi-weekly.
Okay, so you have 2 a month, so,
times
so
6 is
48 hours overtime a month, so 20, you know, you're talking a couple hours a day is what you're talking.
26 days.
If you calculated that out, I don't think you're gonna put a number in there that anybody's
6
gonna
days a
agree to.
month. If you
What's
have
that?
3 days for 2 weeks, and that'd be 6 days a month, and if you're taking 6 months, basically, that's 36 days. 36 days, not hours.
Yeah, days.
So
So,
36 times
so
8,
you're looking at,
300.
well, you're looking at 300 hours. And so how much money is that?
That's a good question. I think it's gonna be steep.
Yeah, it's probably over 10 grand.
What's the hourly? Just straight hourly, you know?
Not off of
But I
his.
mean, when you
It's
load
probably
it,
in the
because you gotta load it,
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
I mean, I can.
you're gonna
I
be at
gotta-
over $10,000, so.
You know what the hourly is roughly? Why do we-
Well, I don't know what yours is on top of my head.
What's the salary set?
honestly, it's like 22 or something.
Salary set up there.
And then benefits,
Benefits
Yeah.
set up at 77,000, so divide that by 140 days.
But benefits
Well,
don't, you have to get
77
overtime on benefits.
no,
No.
you're right, you're
Yeah,
right.
no.
It's not really right.
Benefits, or
But,
how much?
you know, part of
How much
you're gonna have some additional
additional,
cost,
yeah.
so.
I don't know, it's just, they're lumped together.
Oh, salary and benefits are the total,
Yeah,
77.
take off 7. They say it's 10.
Well, 77 divided by
240, is it? Work days in a year?
2040,
240.
3775 gross, including benefits. So times,
Around 40.
I was gonna say, he's probably like 41, 40.
12,000, you were pretty close up there.
Yeah. You're gonna be $10,000, $12,000, so,
Which is, I mean, that with that's 10% of the budget, we'll just take off that overhead that's,
Yeah,
19.6%.
good luck with that.
Well, geez, you went up, you realize how much you've gone up in the last
Almost
3 years?
11,000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 10%, and you've doubled
I know,
in 3 years.
more expensive.
You know what, we could probably go through the county maybe and
That's about 14% over and above the standard salary,
Yeah.
rough numbers.
So, you know, to make something happen on this, we've got to come up with an idea of what kind of a number that we'd be comfortable with our budget. I don't think that we can go the full, you know, additional $12,000 to allow for that on our budget. I don't think we have the funding for that,
I mean,
unless we change the rate. That's the only thing that's gonna do it.
and I would vote that you don't. I think it'd be good to maybe spell it out that we have some leniency there with, and maybe spell out a small figure. But I think Dan and I can work on trying to manage something else, just to try to keep us moving forward.
Okay.
And managing just time management.
So,
issues.
Well, you can't work here forever, eventually it's gonna run out.
I'm
I
gonna,
know, that's why I know that.
And I'll tell you, it's
I
not
know.
a time management issue, it's a, you know, the job's being done, it's not like he's not using his time.
No, I understand. I
I'm gonna try to
understand.
keep up with him in a.
I-
all
No,
right.
know.
Well, I guess I would suggest that with the funding that we have and everything, I think we ought to authorize or come up with maybe an additional $5,000 a year, to utilize for overtime to get the job done.
Would paying Dan overtime, would that, reduce our need to bring in more help, or would it be
No.
above and beyond? Do you think?
Still. you'd
Probably
still
not.
need help.
It'd be above, because you're still doing
Yeah.
it now with help.
Right. And, I mean, there's some things that are.
And the other thing too is that money that's used above and beyond is not for this program so much as it is the backyard and those things, correct?
Say that again?
Okay, the extra time where they bring in somebody else, Doherty or whoever they're coming in to help with these projects, are not for this program that we're working with livestock and timber.
Well, we paid 3,500 this year already for that, right? Am I reading that right?
Or is that hounds?
Well,
Is it people or is it dogs?
Hire?
Hires.
Hires or what?
Okay.
Could be dogs.
Hires is, yeah, that's the
No,
ATV hire and the dog.
that's how much it costs to have his dogs and everything else.
Oh,
Dogs.
okay,
That's
Yeah.
not
never
what
mind,
feed-
never
We're
mind.
hiring the dogs,
Okay.
so, okay.
Yep,
So,
They're
it,
valuable.
yeah, well, that's.
so I think, at least I understood that those additional people were doing a lot of work with this backyard stuff.
Now, we started it at the end of the season last year, and I believe Jim Doherty was short-funded some, so it actually was, it helped him too. But the response time from Curry County to go to Lakeside and whatnot, so
Yeah.
we did not use Jim that much. That's broke down somewhere, I thought I heard you
Okay.
say.
All right.
And then Harry did a little bit too, but
Yeah.
I was hoping to this year, if it gets as bad as, and, you know, not every year is the same. Last year was pretty bad, wouldn't you agree, Steve?
Yeah, but I think that it's becoming pretty common to have an extended bear damage issues. It's not uncommon for us to deal with bears in the January.
Yeah.
Used to be, when I first got here, first of November, it pretty much ends.
Yeah, they're not going to bed
And they're
early
starting
enough.
earlier too, these
Yeah.
backyard bears.
Yeah,
We've had some calls already, I know.
So, we had 37 bears we took last year. Didn't you say there was a fewer than that? Or what? That's quite a few bears. We
No,
can-
I was
we
just
can-
talking
All right.
about in the, right here,
Well-
this says cage traps, 3. I mean, we've got 3 a
Well,
week.
then you
for-
maybe just,
It's just how it broke down.
yeah. Well, I'm gonna just suggest to make a motion that we instruct Paul to put into the county agreement an additional $5,000 of funding for overtime, for this next year, and we see where it goes from there, and see what we need to do.
And shift any supply funds or whatever equipment money
Yeah.
not used. over.
They've already
Well,
got the
they-
ability
yeah,
to
we
do
can
that,
do
so,
Put that over into that. We got a few weeks to do that.
Paul, do you have any, employment, sorry?
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh,
Yeah.
Do you have any employment-related rules that are gonna create a challenge with paying overtime? I know with our agency, there's a lot of rules on that.
We have a little bit of discretion, it's just the way that all the county agreements, they don't like to modify them too much, because all of a sudden, there's a bunch of different agreements out there, and it's hard to keep track of, so.
But you may be able to
But
work with this.
I think I can make a suggestion up the food chain to, incorporate that for him, but
Good.
Okay.
my only fear is just like anything else, the minute we do this, then everybody else wants to have the same thing, and it may not, one size does
Well,
not fit
you
all.
might get it written in, but if there's no funds for it, then there's no
Yeah,
funds.
Exactly.
So,
Sorry, did I interrupt you?
No, you're just fine.
yeah, did
You
you,
know,
I
Stu,
I'm gonna throw cleaner
Sharon,
on
go ahead.
all this, you're not gonna like what I have to say. But, last night, we had a meeting, a conference call, and the gossip on the street is that ODA is cutting their Predator funds for this half of the biennium. And that's the second person I've heard it from, and so,
Thanks, Sharon.
so it's not, I don't know where you guys are on it and what you've
That's,
been.
so, all I know is the SB 50/50 funds are gone. I have not heard what you're telling me right now.
Okay,
Unless that's the
because
same, unless we're getting,
Governor Brown told everybody they had to cut 17%.
Proposed budget.
that's a proposed budget cut.
Oh, is that the proposed?
Those are
budget?
proposed
Okay,
cuts, yes.
Okay, okay, then
Yeah.
I'm wrong on that.
but we should
But-
keep that in mind.
But, she can't determine each individual department, that's only up to the legislature. She can only go
Okay.
overall the total Oregon budget.
Yeah, that's what, yeah.
So it may be less or more, and who
Yeah.
knows what the legislature comes up with.
Yeah, and that's the other part of that, and I know we've got the same issue with fire protection budget.
CFPA, yes.
And it's a proposed 17%, but there's a lot of pushback on that because there's laws that say you have to do this.
Okay,
And if you don't fund it, you're not fulfilling your responsibilities within the laws, so, yeah. It's tough, it's gonna be a difficult situation,
So-
this whole thing is.
Help me understand this more clearly. So back to what I asked earlier, the money that we're generating in this co-op, and with all the other pulled-in monies, I mean, there's extra money that's beyond my position, and that's the money that we would get the overtime from?
Last year, we opted to increase our assessments beyond what it would take with the acreage for the, to meet the budget. That we would have some surplus that would carry forward. And,
That was the 11
If we
cents.
set it up, well, we thought we may lose Oregon Fish and Wildlife.
Yeah.
ODA. so
Yeah, I
that's-
remember this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we went from 34 cents to 42 to cover that, but then they
Yeah.
came through, so that
yeah.
gave us.
And so there was a little surplus there, and then we have a few more acres, and that's the other thing. But we're also losing $5,000 out of county funds this year. Because the county forest was putting in 30 and then it dropped 25, 20, 50, it was 15 last year. It's 10 next year. And the following year, and I just talked with Lance about it the other day, and it'll be somewhere around $6,700 a year at this rate for the county forest. So next year, they'll be on an acreage, not a set number. And they'll be paying per acre what everybody else is, and that was to bring the equity to it. But the commissioners made the move to be able to kind of lessen the blow of that money tapering down back when we started this, so that there would be a step down of $5,000 a year out of county forest funds.
And I have not heard from, I haven't heard from the county forest this year on the bear field and stuff. So that,
I've talked to Lance the other day, and he said he just hasn't seen much.
yeah, so I
So-
think it was pretty productive. You know, we had a couple different guys working on that and knocking
Yeah.
them back, so now the money's dropping off on that.
Yeah.
review.
And Lance also thinks that it helps that there's so many people on the county forest all the time.
Keep it clear.
Keeps them away. Runs them over to backyard bears at Bandon, so.
So we're not gonna go down to 10,000 from them this year?
Yes, we
Yeah,
are.
okay.
We're down, that's the county funds this year, so, yeah. Okay. I put the motion on the table to authorize Paul to include up to $5,000 in the county agreement from the funds to cover overtime for this next year.
Second.
Second by Charlie. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Paul, you want to talk to us about budget a little bit? This is pretty much standard fare, right?
Right there. That's
Here it
the
is.
budget.
Here it is right
You
here.
have it in front of me.
Coos County funds, 80,859. 10,000 of that is county forest fund. And so out of ours, we should have excess of $12,000 of surplus funds to hopefully temper any loss of funds anywhere else and maybe cover the additional overtime for this next year.
So, just to be clear, so that 80, we're just gonna tack another $5,000 for overtime, to cover overtime?
Yeah, we need to put that in.
Yeah,
Right,
you'd
right,
put
right,
that
right.
into the
Yeah.
budget,
I
yeah.
just wanna make it was
Up
clear.
in
Right.
the salary benefits section.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. And I think we would bump that to 85 then.
Okay.
But then that's, you know, I mean, that's a discretionary.
Right.
You use it, you use it. If you don't, that's fine too.
Yep.
But, we need to we need to cover that.
Yeah.
Okay?
Thank you.
All right. So, the rate for 2021, we're at 42 cents. We continue that.
How many, 230,000?
We're 200 and, yeah,
220,
we're 203 or 203,000 acres or something like that. Or
So at 42 cents, that gets
What's that?
us right to that
you added
85,000.
1,800, right?
1,800, yeah.
1,800 plus 18 plus 202 is what?
1,800 on to 2,200 is about 2,004 acres. Yeah, and 4 acres.
202,000.
Yeah, we went from 202 to about 204.
Last year.
So 2 plus 18 is 20? 2,000 acres, yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
roughly a
almost
penny,
2,000 acres.
2,000,
Yeah.
yeah, pennies, 2,000.
Okay, so how many acres?
We're gonna be roughly, and I'll get that number for you
You'll give me
too.
the exact
Yeah,
number.
I'll give you that number
40
too.
would give you 80,
Yeah,
40 cents would, yeah, roughly give you 80,000.
Roughly 204.
yeah, I was thinking that the number I had was gonna pump us out at about $85,000.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For
I
42
think that's,
cents?
was that what it was?
Yeah,
At
that's what I got,
42?
yeah,
Okay.
42 cents.
Yeah.
82 cents was last.
So that would be our generated number that would go in on
That
our,
would give us-
on our, budget.
I also want to emphasize if there's a need to increase the budget, it's in the agreement with the county, that we can come forward and, I don't know if initiated from the county up or from the state down, but we can increase the budget to cover the cost.
Mhm.
So we need to be thinking about that and have that in our back pocket if it's necessary.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
all-
I guess-
didn't realize it necessary till I got a copy from them and read it and then, oh, okay, we have
Yeah.
the movement, so.
Well, I guess my take is that, you know, we did an increase last year, probably not wise to do an increase this year, but I see what you mean. Yeah.
Assessment rate, it will be, there's a pot of money.
If there's money
carry
there
over.
to use it.
Yeah, and if there's some wiggle room, for some reason, something comes up, an
Yeah.
outbreak of whatever, then we have that option.
Well, you know, and we've given authority
Now it's a cover,
to cover 5.
yeah, that's good,
If we see a need for more,
yeah,
we could always do that in a special meeting
right.
and make a
Just wanted-
decision there,
yeah,
so,
have
okay?
that.
Because as it sits now, if all of the money comes through from the state, we'll have the money to cover that 5,000, plus we have
Right.
the surplus from last year to cover.
Right.
Correct. That's,
Yeah.
well, that's right.
That's,
And equipment,
that was part of my question with what we were doing with the carryover. So that's
Yeah, the carryover's on there.
And-
That's what I wanted to make sure, that 5,000 was, you're not paying in addition to that, you got, this,
And how
the
many
money's there.
bear traps do you have?
We use ODF and W's bear live, the big,
How many?
the trailer traps, we have 3.
Oh, you got 3? What's your, the fall, there's probably more demand than that, or is that covering our, your?
That's a hot item, I mean, is it 3 or 4?
You've got 3.
Yeah.
It keeps up most of the time. There's times where people have to wait a little bit. For the most part, it keeps up. Yeah, I mean, another trap would certainly not hurt anything, but,
So what, where do you get those?
we have them built. We have had them built. I had 2
Here
of them built.
local?
I had, 2 of them built at the college back when they had a
Uh-huh.
bigger welding program. I don't know if they do it now or not. And then one was built at North Bend, High School. And then I've got some others I've had built in other places that are in Douglas County.
Oh, yeah, okay. So if the need arises, you can't get one, but it's probably not call them up and get it tomorrow.
Yeah, it takes a while.
Takes a while,
I mean, I gotta get money, I gotta get,
yeah,
yeah, it takes a bit.
okay.
I feel pretty good we got 3.
What's your
A
rough,
lot of guys don't have.
I've got much more than any other district.
what's a rough
Yeah,
cost
you
on
do.
those?
We can generally get them done for around $5,000.
Okay.
Something like that.
All right.
Those might be old numbers, because it's been a while since we built them.
All right.
Where's the need? We have a need, we have more players.
Yeah.
Not really.
Well, I'm
Not really. You know,
gonna go ahead and make the motion that we, set our assessment rate at 42 cents an acre on those over minimum size, and a $10 fee on the minimum lots, just like we had this last year, to do that. Have a second on that? Second, Tristan or Mitch? Put them both down, they can fight over it.
What is the $10 fee above?
If you have a parcel less than 10 acres, no, there's a fee, flat fee. If you're under so many acres, you pay a flat fee that doesn't.
And the bare minimum is 10 acres to join, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's, well, no,
You could-
no,
you
no,
can
no,
sign
it's
up
a
if you have 2
10 acre
acres.
minimum. It's a 10 acre minimum and you pay on that. And then if you have over 10 acres, you pay by the acre, is what it amounts to.
So in the-
So
in
the
case of,
5-6 acre tracts that can, wanna join can,
so in
or
the
2
case of-
acre.
And then, so then there's a $10 fee in addition.
Or, it's a 10 acre, and I can't remember what the minimum fee is, but it comes in on it, so, yeah. I think it might be $10 is
I
what it
think
is,
that's what
yeah,
it was, $10.
yeah.
So for the, say you got,
But there's just very few of those. There's hardly any of those minimum lot size that are on this program, so, yeah, that are in the list, so. Stu?
okay, you might just answer my question. So what I was gonna ask was, when you've got a homeowner that's outside of town having bear problems in the fall, you know, garbage type stuff, and
Mhm.
Dan responds to it, should he be charging that homeowner $10 to respond to that, or is that?
I don't know where that funding is, because if they're not a member, he doesn't respond unless it's out of,
That's,
Your
we're
funds.
working out of their funds.
that's out of your money.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's how that,
That's where we're saying I can't refuse service to those folks. However, there's a slippery slope here, but if those folks who we're providing service for decided to say, hey, we wanna support the program, and reach out to Jim and say, hey, I would like to sign up, I mean, I'm not gonna tell them not to do it, right? I mean, they're supporting a program and they just got service for $10.
Yeah.
But we can't handle the money.
yeah.
We can,
And we actually have some people that had called me about it, wanted to join. I don't think they'll ever see a problem,
Right.
but they wanted to participate when we first started this. There are some of those folks out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wanted to make sure, whatever their connection is to somebody else about the system or whatever, so. Okay? So, we have a motion, second, other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries, rate set for 2021, or 2021. Okay, so, what we need on that, and I will have to fill this in since I didn't bring the acreage with me and get the dollar number, but we set it at 42 cents an acre, and approval date 6/4/2020, and
You have a that's your resolution.
this is the resolution. Mitch, sign there and got your name if you would, please. Looking at our bylaws, I checked that to make sure we have a quorum. We had to have 3 out of 5 and to be legal.
Does that count for signatures too, or is Ron gonna have to sign that?
No, we just, signatures, I mean, he wasn't here, so, but 3 out of 5 is what we need. Okay.
Just the one, I guess?
Just one, and that goes to the commissioners, and I'll try to get that in as soon as possible. And what I've done in the past, when I present that packet, it's got everything in it. Cover letter, it's got the resolution, it's got minutes. It has everything in it that we need to furnish to the commissioners, and then I will then pass all of this on to Denise over in the assessor's office to get the new folks signed up and get it on for next year. So they'll be on July 1st, is when they would start. So, and you're pretty prompt on the minutes, Charlie, so we'll do that whenever you can get them sent to me. And I'll stop by the office. What, is it all right? Are you gonna work on it tonight, or would it be tomorrow?
I may, but I'll just leave that part
I'll
open.
just do it.
So just send it to me.
I'll do it first thing in the morning,
Cause I may do some tonight.
because I'll get kind of rummy here by the time I get done today, so.
I got my last night minutes done, so I can.
Oh, okay. Good. All right, anything else?
I wanna point out,
Charlie, go ahead.
we're charging 19.6% overhead, and just 3 years ago it was 10%.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't anything 3 years before that.
Yeah.
So if you follow that line, we're gonna be out of business. I mean, it's all gonna go to overhead, and down on the ground, we're not getting any work done.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's gonna drive us to go independent, or through the county. There's the option of going through the county or whatever. I mean, I'm not threatening, it's a matter of the amount of money we
Yeah.
have to
Well,
get our job done.
the only way to change that is through DC.
That is correct.
That's the only way to do it.
Because that is,
Is that the indirect rate for all of
That-
USDA?
yes, they have made a management decision, and that's what you gotta go with. So,
Yeah.
I
so,
understand there's some work with the management decision, or whether they're trying to work back some of the associations to be reasonable or whatever.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
will
I
help
was-
us
I-
slow down.
and
We'll
I-
be following it and make sure.
And I do know that there was a revolution a few years back about, with OSU Extension, that handled a lot of co-op agreements for different groups that were trying to do co-op work. And they basically just told them, fine, go away, because they went up to 13%. And, but they had ways of doing it. Little difficult for us, unless we just get Dan to retire and hire him independently, I mean, that's the other way. So we pay him less, work him more hours.
No, there's an option.
No?
That'll be a different meeting. Yeah.
Oh, that's a different, that's a different meeting. All right.
I do have a,
There's one more option.
Oh.
We could go through the county if they would allow the board of commissioners to go through the sheriff's department or something. We just need to run the salary and whatnot through there or whatever, and you'd have to get cooperation, all that group. But there is an alternative of still working through a government agency or
Yeah.
whatever, but that's just, I wanna make it clear whether it'll happen or not, or.
Yeah. Okay.
You lost me a little bit. But the government is taking 19% off the top, is that 19% for overhead?
It's out of the
Yeah,
$114,000,
they're taking
19.6%.
Went to the government, it went to the treasurer or whatever.
Yeah.
it goes to help.
But it didn't go to benefits?
No.
Okay,
No.
yeah, well, the state takes, when we get a grant from the feds, they it goes through the state, they take off 20% off the
Right
top.
off the bat, I know.
The state does,
Yeah,
to the county,
yeah,
really.
yeah, from the feds to the state, to
See?
the county.
It's
supposed to be
everywhere.
for the county. It
So
goes
you-
through the state, they take 20%.
So you definitely wanted to go through a minimum number of
Well,
agencies
it's
before it gets to you.
No, we go straight from the feds to the county.
Yeah, right,
20% off the
Right.
top.
but if you put two agencies in, then there's 40% off the top, huh? So, anything else?
I have a question, Colin.
Dan, go ahead.
So, after the fiscal year starts, let's say it's August, let's say Dale Blanton does decide he's got issues and he wants to sign it and he means it this time. So far, we've been telling everybody, you gotta wait till the next fiscal year to join, correct? Okay.
That's what they gotta do. That's the way it's set up and everything, the way this district was set up and our bylaws but that's the way it was, because it has to be done prior to that tax year so they can get it on their tax rolls
Right.
in November.
So the budget, all works out, right?
Right,
Yeah.
that's what that's all about.
Okay, I've had to explain that to different people,
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Well, I can explain it to them too, so if you get a problem, child, comes call me.
Talk to Jim.
Talk to me.
Jim, they really don't want any signups till, was it November, December? you
Yeah,
said?
it's November 1, and we take them between November 1 and May 1.
Okay.
Is when we take it. So, and I get them, people in the fall, and they call, and I tell them, I said, as soon as November 1st gets here, I'll send you the paperwork, I send it to them, I get nothing back. I've done how many, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's been a number of them I've sent out, and they haven't done anything, so, but, yeah, and, I think the program has been, it seems to be working, we've gotten some of the kinks out of it. We're, got the feet on the ground, we're able to pay for it, at least to a point. So, we are, and appreciate your time and efforts on what you're doing too, so, yeah.
Thank you. I
Yep.
appreciate everyone's support too,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. Sure. Anybody have anything else? If not, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
What, is this gonna be an annual meeting or when?
It is an annual meeting, and we can have additional meetings if necessary, as needed. But we have to have an annual meeting in May or June. And it was gonna be in May, except I was waiting out the coronavirus.
Look at me and Paul, that's okay.
Yeah.
We're under orders.
This is our, yeah, this is
Stu,
our.
aren't you under orders? You gotta wear one of these.
I've got one if you need.